Good morning, everyone. It's Gary here, and a warm welcome back to the fourth official here on YouTube. And as always, a big thank you to everyone for hitting that subscribe button and for joining us here on the show. Joining me this morning to look back on a busy weekend of football in Scotland, including the two big Premier Sports Cup semi-finals from the Scottish Football Podcast. It's Beth Wallace. Warm welcome, Beth.
Morning, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. A lot better after the second half performance yesterday, I've got to be said. It was looking a little bit ropey, but yeah, in the end, Rangers managed to turn around and get a 2-1 victory, which sees them book a place in the Cup final on the 15th of December against the Celtic side, who were pretty clinical and blowing away Aberdeen 6-0 on Saturday. Let's start things off with the game yesterday, the 2-1 win for Rangers coming from behind, an Andy Halliday goal for Motherwell, giving them a lead before Cyril Dessers finally managed to find the back of the net, and the winner 10 minutes from time from Nadim Bayrami. I think it's fair to say that going into the game, Rangers and Philippe Clement were under immense pressure following the defeat up at Pittodrie on Wednesday night, and I think the team lineup, I don't think, did him many favours, sticking with the tried and tested 4-2-3-1 formation, which he stated in his press conference before the game that he was going to do so because he didn't have enough time to train out a new philosophy or a new formation. Not quite sure how much I hold that to, but the likes of James Tavernier, Cyril Dessers, Tom Lawrence remaining in the starting lineup. And once again, it was a really turgid, slow pace to the first half, which Motherwell were able to quite easily absorb, and then they took advantage of some really poor defending from James Tavernier and Hefty for Andy Halliday to burst in for the opening goal, to much consternation amongst the Rangers support in the crowd at Hampden. Watching on as a neutral, or a semi-neutral, what was your take on the first half performance yesterday?
I actually thought, you know what, Motherwell's got a chance here, and there was quite a lot of pressure on Motherwell going into that game yesterday because everyone that's not a Rangers fan, and I mean, some Rangers fans will have wanted to lose yesterday as well because they wanted rid of Clement, but everyone was watching on, seeing what was going to happen after everything that happened midweek, seeing if it was going to be his final 45 minutes after it was the 1-0. But obviously, Rangers managed to turn it around. And I actually thought, see, when the Rangers players scored that second goal, they just looked so relieved to get that goal. It wasn't like, yes, we're through, we've done this. It was like, thank God for that. I don't know if you agree.
No, 100%. There was certainly a shift in the second half, and I think the catalyst for that was Tom Lawrence going off injured 10 minutes before half time, Mohamed Diamonde coming on, and that just allowed Rangers, whether it was by chance or whether it was by nature, at half time, to just slightly alter the way that midfield three were playing. Connor Barron was freed up a little bit to get a bit more further forward, and it was his burst into the box that created the equaliser. Cyril Dessers, after missing two horrendous opportunities in the first half, which any striker worth their salt should have tucked away, couldn't really miss in the middle of the goal, 6 yards out, dinked it over the Motherwell keeper Oxborough, who had a good game, which we'll touch on shortly. But that just freed them up a little bit, and as you say, the confidence that looked completely bereft in the first half, the boos coming from the stand, as much as Tavernier and Dessers were still getting it, with bells on, it was not quite as toxic as the first half atmosphere was. And actually, the players responded a little bit to that, and then the fans responded to the players. Vaslav Cherny really came onto a game second half, and it was his play alongside substitute Danilo, who really good movement from him, creating a bit of space for Nadim Bayrami at the back post to slot in the winner with the help of a little bit of a deflection. But outside of that, a couple of shots off the post, one from Cherny late on, which could have made the result a little bit more comfortable. But yeah, certainly that second half comeback will have Philippe Clement and his staff breathing just a little bit more easy. But I think it's fair to say that all the problems are nowhere near away, and what Rangers are going to have to do is take a little bit of credit, I think, from that second half performance, play with a bit more energy and a bit more verve, because at Kilmarnock, at Pittodrie, first half at Hampden yesterday. This slow pace with no real confidence doesn't really get anywhere because Scottish teams know how to combat that.
Yeah, 100%. And I think this Rangers team, it's just not been what we expected this year. Obviously, you need to just look at the league table, some of the losses that they've came up against. It's really not been working for them. A lot of people saying it's time for Clement to go. If Clement goes, though, does that really change any of the problems that are within the Rangers team? He obviously had a big job to do in the summer. It looked like he had to really get the wage bill down quite a bit, which then leaves you, in a place that you do with the players that you have. There's obviously some good players in there, but not maybe players that can be competing with Celtic, unfortunately. And I mean, even Aberdeen this year, they're finding. So even if the manager does go, I think problems will still continue for Rangers this year. It's been a really difficult one for us.
Yeah, I think looking at that second half performance in particular, that there are players there that can play to a standard, and I think it's all about coaching and finding a system that's going to make them remove some of the negatives and extenuate some of the positives. And I don't necessarily think what's happened this season, particularly in away games, has allowed them to be able to do that. But yep, it's got them a place in the cup final on the 15th of December. And once again, it's going to be an Old Firm final. You were in attendance at Hampden on Saturday, and I think it's fair to say after beating Rangers on Wednesday night and the start of the season that Jimmy Tilleen's Aberdeen have had, a lot of people from a Northwest persuasion were getting into the game on Saturday with quite a bit of confidence, taken off the back of that 2-2 draw at Parkhead just a few weeks ago, coming from behind to rescue a point and keep that unbeaten record intact. So confidence certainly was high going into the game, but they ran into a Celtic side who were incredibly clinical. 8 shots on target the whole game, 6 in the back of the net. And from an Aberdeen persuasion, does that stop the momentum, or is it a blip on the road and obviously a disappointing result in a game that they obviously went into thinking they had an opportunity for? But as you mentioned, that 9-point gap in the league back to Rangers in third really gives Aberdeen an opportunity to push on it and try and finish the season in great form. I know it's only November, but getting out the cup will have been a disappointment.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone really expected that scoreline on Saturday afternoon. There was a lot of optimism amongst the Aberdeen fans. We were doing stuff for the radio stations around in and around the grounds before and after the game. And interestingly, sorry, my voice is going. Interestingly, it was the Celtic fans that were nervous. The Dons fans were absolutely buzzing for the game ahead. First 20 minutes before the goal, I thought, Celtic, I don't know if they're on the mark here today. Aberdeen could be within a chance here. And then it just all changed, and it was just another Celtic masterclass. I thought Aberdeen maybe put too much into the game from Wednesday night against Rangers.
How often do we see that as after a performance against Rangers where they empty the tank next time out?
Yeah.
It's not a story that we've not seen before.
Yeah, and definitely that was Aberdeen's first midweek game of the season. We've got 2 midfielders there, Shinnie and Nielsen, who are both great players. I've really enjoyed them this season, but I mean, Nielsen in particular on Saturday just wasn't it at all. And I wonder whether there wasn't a rough recovery time for guys there that are maybe that a little bit older. It's been such a high. Like, I know personally as a fan how I felt after the game on Saturday, because it's been such an emotional roller coaster of last minute goals, all this excitement. I was absolutely exhausted at the end of that 6-0 defeat. It was really devastating, and I can only imagine how the players feel in that situation as well. Is it as a blip in the road? Is it us coming back down from reality? I would like to think it's just a bump in the road, and I think the players will learn a lot from that defeat on Saturday. That's the first loss of the season, Jimmy Tilleen's first loss. You learn a lot more from your losses than you do your wins. It's Dundee on Saturday in the league. Obviously Dundee's had a good win at the weekend. But with the manager that we've got, I would like to think that considering what we've seen what he's done so far, that he'd be able to pick the players back up and say, right, just a blip in the road, we go again. Back to one game at a time. And I think Aberdeen will continue to go and be really good this season.
Yeah, I think they would have fancied it, obviously going into the game of the high off the back of the Rangers result, and knowing that if they were to get past Celtic at the weekend, then it was a final against a Rangers team that they've already beaten this season, a Motherwell side that, with all respect to Motherwell, they would have expected to have been favourites for. So it was a possible missed opportunity to get some silverware, and granted that they ran into a Celtic side who just were very, very clinical and took their chances, and very similar to the Celtic Dortmund game a few weeks ago, where Dortmund, basically everything they shot went into the back of the net, and that was the situation on Saturday. Particularly Dyson Mida, who is a player who can give opposition defences a lot of problems with his kind of all-action style that he's running, and probably the first time I've seen from him a real kind of clinical side to his finishing as well, and him alongside Kyogo gave the Aberdeen back line an awful lot of problems that they didn't get on Wednesday night up against Cyril Dessers. Obviously a very different style of threat, and that probably harks back to what I was talking about earlier in terms of Rangers playing with more dynamism. That's the way to get results in Scotland, is to play with pace and power, and not just tippy-tappy stuff in front of packed defences, because Scottish teams know how to combat that.
Yeah, and to be fair, give him his due, Maeda was absolutely on it on Saturday, but I was really surprised at Nicky Devlin. Nicky Devlin's been a brilliant player for us this year. He's obviously went and got a Scotland cap. At the weekend, at the Rangers game, I was looking at him and I was like, Nicky Devlin has potential to be Aberdeen's player of the year. And then he just couldn't get a hold of Maeda on Saturday, unfortunately. But that's, I suppose, the gulf in quality sometimes. Celtic were able to rest a lot of their players midweek, 6 changes to their starting lineup. Aberdeen stuck with the same. Not that I want to go on about the gap that's there between the rest of the teams and financial, because it comes into your advantage at sometimes, but then it's also a disadvantage to you. But yeah, Celtic were just on their game on Saturday, and just annoyingly, the biggest occasion of the year, it was Aberdeen's worst game on Saturday. They couldn't have picked a better day to do it.
No, but I'm sure they'll be hoping to, as you say, turn it back around Dundee next up. But as I say, all eyes will now point towards Hampden on the 15th of December and an Old Firm final. And certainly plenty of coverage here on the Fourth Official as we get closer to that game. As we're talking of that, yesterday we activated a free 7-day trial on our Patreon site. You can find us at www.patreon.com/the4thofficial. If you're not already a Patreon member of the site, come and find us, take advantage of the 7-day free trial and get all our access to our post-match coverage, our podcasts, our articles, and obviously we're here on YouTube as well. A big thank you to Beth for joining us on this one, and a big thank you to you for watching. Once again, I'll speak to you next time. Goodbye.